me through that moment where it went romantic, it went intimate.
I had thought to myself, I care more deeply for this person than I know that I should. The student was only 14.
So this is statutory rape.
There's no way that I can convince you that this was a real relationship. But at the time that I was in it, it was.
What the hell were you thinking? It seems like every day we read about a new female teacher accused of sexually abusing an underage student. These teachers are grooming their victims with gifts, drugs, or alcohol, not to mention social media continues to help blur the lines between teacher and student. Now, you would think they would figure out by all the coverage this gets, you're not gonna get away with this. Everybody thinks, oh, I'll get away with it. I'm the exception. No, you're not. Last night, we spoke to 3 young men who say their teachers crossed the line. They say they were targeted, groomed, and eventually sexually abused by someone they thought they could trust.
I needed a ride home, so I had called Mrs. Hotelli, and she had to say, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And that's when we just had sex.
She just started to sit on my lap and then she started kissing on me. We had sex a total of like 6 times. And I kept telling her no, but she wouldn't let up.
This is an important situation that doesn't get talked about. What did you guys think about this?
I was kind of like trying to run away from the fact that it all happened because I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't really want to get caught. I didn't want my family to know at the time.
I didn't know what to do. She kind of took it as like an invitation to just keep coming back because I didn't say anything to anybody.
When I was 11, my 35-year-old teacher was manipulating me into having sexual intercourse. It was like an everyday thing, like there was nothing wrong.
Well, Mason, thanks for being here. And I want to say to the 3 of y'all, before we go on, how much I appreciate your being here and being willing to talk about this. We want to put some light on this so it can stop. Anybody step up and say anything?
I had one teacher, and she pulled me out of class, and she asked me if there was anything going on with me and Heather, and I denied it. I told her no.
And did she drop it?
Yes, she dropped it.
Did anybody ever ask you guys if anything was going on?
We had one teacher ask us, because her office was shared with another teacher. And every time we would be in there, the other teacher would sometimes come in there and she would just ask us what we're doing in there.
And then the teachers that if I would get pulled out of class, they would just wonder how come you always get pulled out at the same time every day? I don't know.
But nobody did anything about it.
This is a line that should never be crossed. This isn't ambiguous at all. This is a bright line. You do not take advantage of your students.
I think they do this and they go into these abusive relationships with a lot of confidence that they're not going to get caught, that they're going to get away with this.
How do you defend these cases?
In many situations, especially when it comes to women, it's a matter of letting the punishment fit the crime. In other words, what is appropriate? What is the effect on the victim?
You don't know what it is before and after, sometimes for years and years, because it comes back to haunt them after the fact. Tonight, we're going to hear from a former teacher. She was once Teacher of the Year, but life as she knew it ended when her former student reported her to the police almost a decade after their 2-year relationship. The student was just 14 years old. She agreed to speak with me if we didn't identify her and conducted the interview without audience. Here's what she had to say. Okay, I appreciate you sitting down and talking with me. At this point, you are out of the teaching profession, correct?
That's correct.
But there was a time you were teaching in middle school.
That's correct.
Why did you become a teacher?
I love being able to look at another person and maximize another person. There was no greater joy than seeing the success of someone else. And so it led me into the profession.
Were you good at it?
I was phenomenal. I was really, really, really good at it.
And that wasn't just your opinion. Students, fellow teachers, administrators agreed.
Yeah, I had the heart for it and the determination. I had the intelligence. I was very successful.
And you were well educated. You had a good education?
Yes, sir.
And when you went through your education, did they talk to you about boundaries?
I don't have any memory of that being part of the university experience.
Were you raised to know the difference between right and wrong, to know boundaries?
Yes, I have a strong moral compass.
Did you grow up in a healthy family, community? I'm just trying to find out what your base was coming into this kind of situation.
I wouldn't say that my family life was healthy. I would say that anything that my parents didn't do or didn't do well in terms of parenting me, I was able to switch into a non-example of how. Like I was able to.
You didn't carry forward any generational legacy. If your parents were not doing what they should, you made a conscious decision to fill that void and go the other direction.
That's correct.
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to get to. Because look, here's what people are curious about, because I've done some background work on you, and everything you're saying is true. You're intelligent, you had the respect of your peers, students, administrators, teachers alike all said A+, 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 A+. But you crossed a boundary.
That's right.
There was no question about it. And people ask me a lot, they say, Dr. Phil, you've got a teacher here who crosses a boundary and gets intimately involved, sexually involved, emotionally involved with a child, with a student. Who does that?
Right.
When they say that to me, it's not a rhetorical question. They're asking, who does that? What kind of person does that? Because they assume that this is some kind of immoral monster. But when I look at your background, that's not true. So I guess the primary question is, what the hell were you thinking?
That's the question. I can say this. My response would be, I wasn't. I know it was a slippery slope. It wasn't like one decision. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. This doesn't just happen overnight, or at least that's not my story. And I can't speak to anybody's story but my own. But my story was birthed with an emotional connection, with nothing but good intentions, moral compass in place. And it's almost as if one tiny decision at a time suddenly leads you down a path that you would never in a million years would I have thought. If you had met me years ago, I would have been the person to say, how could someone do that? What's wrong with them? It's like a different life.
I get it starts with good intentions. You're nurturing this student. You're caring about this student in a legitimate way. But take me through that moment where you threw that moral compass over your shoulder and you crossed that boundary, and it went romantic, it went sexual, it went intimate, it went personal. Take me through that moment. This message is sponsored by Greenlight. Remember summertime as a kid? The freedom, the boredom, the first taste of independence, like setting up a lemonade stand or earning your first dollar. Summer's the perfect time to teach kids real-world money skills that they'll use for life. Greenlight is a debit card and money app for families. Parents can send money, manage chores, and track spending. Kids learn to save, invest, and spend wisely, all in a fun, game-like experience. My producer, LaFern, and her son, David, use it and love it. I wish I had Greenlight when my kids got their first allowance. It would have made life so much easier. Greenlight is the easy way to raise financially smart kids. Don't wait to teach your kids real-world money skills. Start your risk-free trial today at greenlight.com/Phil. That's greenlight.com/Phil. greenlight.com/Phil. Take me through that moment where you threw that moral compass over your shoulder and you crossed that boundary and it went romantic, it went sexual, it went intimate, it went personal. Take me through that moment.
It's important to point out too that, we talked about like there's that interest or whatever. That's not the case with me. It wasn't like there's a sea of students and I took interest in a single student. A student was reintroduced to me. A student showed up at my home.
Right.
So it wasn't like there was a grooming or something going on in a classroom setting, not in a million years. I was reintroduced to a student in a personal setting outside of the profession, a student who...
That you had had before?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
That's true.
All right. So this student got reintroduced to you?
That's correct. And with the consent of that student's parents, continued to spend time, weekends, weeknights, staying over. And when I say this is a slippery slope, that relationship that began, that platonic relationship, emotionally bonded relationship, that continued for well over a year. And then there's that turning moment.
Mm-hmm. That's the moment I want you to tell me about.
I remember a moment when I had thought to myself, I care more deeply for this person than I know that I should. And I remember there being a conversation where that was vocalized. And then organically a kiss occurs. And then the bounce back from that happens where I'm mortified, they're reacting, and it all starts with that first kiss.
Okay, and you say you were mortified.
Yes.
But you expressed the feelings.
That's true.
You said, I feel more for you
Than I should.
than I should. So you initiated that and said that.
Yes.
And it was received. It wasn't like, whoa, hold on. It was received and reciprocated.
Very much so, yes.
Okay. And then it got physical.
Not immediately.
Not in that moment?
No, I mean, there was a kiss in that moment.
Well, that's physical.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it is what it is. But it stopped at that point?
At that juncture, yes.
But then it went further than that
It did.
later. For how long of a period of time?
I would say we were intimately related for about a year and a half, maybe, somewhere
Okay.
in that area.
Now, here's my point, and I'm not saying that this would be an excuse, but people can make a bad impulse decision. That doesn't excuse it because you're an adult, you're expected to control those impulses. I don't know how many encounters you had, 30, 40, 50, 60 over a year. I don't know. It doesn't matter what the number is, but you had multiple opportunities to be together, interact, go back and think, what am I doing here? I know better than this. This is going to stop. I'm the adult. I'm putting up boundaries here. I'm going to lead us out of this. Is not going to happen. Right. Whatever's, and you didn't do that.
That's right.
Why didn't you say it to yourself? Because
I did. I think that I rationally knew that I was completely in the wrong. Like I realized that rationally. But humans are emotional beings. And at that point, that emotional bond was so strong that even when the rationality kicked in, you assuage yourself by saying, I'm an anomaly. This is an anomaly. This isn't like that other situation. This is different. This is different.
Did you see a future?
I did. At the time, I really did.
You thought spending life together, moving forward long term?
Potentially, yes.
And how old was the student?
The student was only 14 to 15.
You're an adult twice the student's age. This student can't give consent, you understand?
I do.
Because a minority can't give consent. So this is statutory rape.
That's correct.
Over and over and over again. Did you ever tell anyone? Did you confide this in anyone? Did you talk to anybody about it at all?
I did.
And what was the response?
The response was a sexual blackmail on me. And I hear myself say that out loud, sir. I don't even know that would be believed by people, and that's fine.
Well, it just is what it is.
But it is what it is. Like when the relationship with the student came to a conclusion, I was heartbroken. I was hurt. And I remember this man saying, I'm on my way. And he showed up at my home, and a sexual encounter occurred at that point.
Right. And was that welcomed by you at the time? Did you try to stop that?
I expressed for actually months and years beyond that how uncomfortable I was with that.
Mm-hmm. But it occurred anyway?
Yes.
And why did you tell this person? Were you looking for a way out? Were you looking for support? Were you looking for understanding? Were you looking for condemnation? What were you looking for?
I mean, obviously, I was looking for understanding. I was looking for something.
What did you expect this person to do?
I don't know what I expected. I will say this. I don't know what I expected. I know I was in pain. And at the end of the day, I am grateful because that confession that I gave to him could have and should have been used to deal with me criminally there on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I consider myself lucky that what happened between he and I happened that way as opposed to that, because it gave me more longevity with my family.
Okay. Were you married at the time?
Not at the time.
Okay. Now, do an autopsy on this yourself. Go back and look at it. You weren't objective then because you were in it. You got pulled into it. There was some need you were meeting that made you vulnerable to getting yourself into this mess. What were you looking for?
I had come out of a failed marriage. I know that I was going through a lot. It was not a strong time in my life. I mean, anytime there's stress, sadness, anxiety, we have a tendency to act out and be riskier than we normally would. And I think I was hurting prior to the relationship with that student, and I think that there was something that provided comfort.
Was the taboo of it exciting to you?
I don't have any memory of feeling some sort of thrill for doing something that I knew was wrong, but at the same time, something about the secrecy of it made it more special or made it feel like more of an anomaly.
Was it exhilarating because it was secret?
I wouldn't use the word exhilarating. I would say it felt precious because it was secret and taboo.
And you are dealing with a child here. Were there problems in the relationship because of childlike emotions?
Not at all. I have no memories of ever feeling like a parent. It was like a peer.
Uh-huh.
It was almost as though we met in the middle.
Did it occur to you that you were feeling safe with someone that was not a peer, that you were dealing with a child instead of someone at your own level who would make requirements that an adult relationship would make on you? You're in the position of power. You're the one in control. You're the adult. You set the agenda. You set the tone. You're dealing with a child. You're in the position of authority and power. So you don't have to meet demands. They know nothing of the world. They're 14.
I honestly have no memory of ever feeling at the time like I was in control. Now, am I able to stand back with time distancing me from this relationship and say, and recognize that there was a power dynamic? Absolutely, I'm able to recognize that. I have no memory of ever feeling like I was truly in the driver's seat at that time. I felt like I was at the beck and call of someone else. That's what my memory is.
Uh-huh. Did you ever stop and ask yourself, what am I doing to this child? I am prematurely pulling them into an adult world, sexually, emotionally, relationship-wise, and robbing them of their childhood. You've heard me say it before. Real change starts with real understanding, and that's why I've had Dr. Daniel Amen on my show many times over the years. At Amen Clinics, they do something different. They look at your brain. With nearly 300,000 brain scans from patients in over 155 countries, they take the guesswork out of mental health care. Anxiety, depression, trauma, memory issues. If you're struggling, it's time for answers. Call 866-580-6569 or go to amenclinics.com/Dr. Phil and take the first step. Call 866-580-6569 or go to amenclinics.com/Dr. Phil. You ever stop and ask yourself, what am I doing to this child? I am prematurely pulling them into an adult world, sexually, emotionally, relationship-wise, and robbing them of their childhood.
I remember vocalizing that and saying that I felt that way. And it's difficult because the response that I got calmed me down. And so I would struggle with those things in the back of my head, but when I would put those things on the table and say, this isn't right.
The student would say, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
No, this is great, I'm good.
Yeah.
Of course, they don't know it.
Not just, I'm great, it's good, it's okay, but respond with, in no way, shape, or form are you doing anything wrong. I absolutely want to be here. I love you. I think that what we're missing is the depth of the emotional friendship that existed. And maybe it was an anomaly, and maybe that's why I struggle right now. Because I feel like, and I'm just going to be honest, I feel like these questions might be suited to someone in my position who was a little more flippant and just
Predatory.
Yeah, honestly. And I don't want to say that, but yeah. There's always the story of, the coach who sleeps with the cheerleaders, and then there's the story of these younger teachers who are seeking attention and sexting X amount of 7th or 8th grade boys or high school boys or whatever. I was neither of those. And so I'm struggling because there's no way that and I'm not saying it's right, but there's no way that I can convince you this was a real relationship. But at the time that I was in it, it was, to me.
Can I share some experiences with you?
Please.
And the word will sting your ears.
Okay.
But I have interviewed many pedophiles across time. And I don't put that label on you because you don't fit the description. You're not a pedophile. Pedophiles are focused on, interested only in children. They don't have other relationships. But when I have talked to pedophiles, or I've talked to people who have found themselves in trouble with the law for statutory rape, every single one told me exactly what you're telling me right now. Every single one. Even if it was with a 5-year-old child and a 40-year-old man, they've said, it was different with me. Mm-hmm. It was real emotion. I loved this child loved me. The time we spent together, you can make it ugly, you can describe it however you want, but the time we spent was special. It was different. We're not like all these others. I'm not someone that groomed somebody and victimized them and ruined their lives. we had something special until outsiders got involved and made it ugly. We weren't like all the rest of them. Exactly what you're telling me right now, because they said we were the exception until it got blown up and made into something ugly.
But that's not what I said.
But it is what you're saying. You're saying, no, we had real emotion. This was a real relationship. There was real emotion at the time. Right. That's what they say, at the time.
Right. But you're trying to compare me to being
No, I'm
attracted
telling
to
you, in fact, I said that's not you. I mean, you've been married, you've had adult relationships, so by definition, DSM-5, clinical definition, you're not a pedophile. But I'm saying you're giving the arguments where you're the exception. Our relationship at the time was on an even field. This was a precocious 14-year-old who was mindful and present and said, I don't feel exploited. I'm not being exploited. I want to be here. Who broke the relationship off?
The student did.
Why?
At one point, they said that they wanted to feel normal, and I respected that.
But it supposedly was normal and good and pure and
Right.
loving and caring.
Right.
So how did you square that up?
All I wanted was to see this person be happy. So when this person wanted to end the relationship, I did nothing but wish them the best. I was heartbroken, but I wished them the best.
And in this situation, the student didn't say anything for 10 years.
That's correct.
Why 10 years later do they come back and say something?
I don't know why all of a sudden that happened. Don't expect you to understand this, but like the power differential, I recognize that the power was tipped in my favor with that student. But the power got turned on me by the student afterward. By the prison system. And so in this setting, you have the power. I'm sitting here like a deer in the headlights, blowing this interview. Don't even know what I'm saying because there's a power difference right here. And you can't possibly understand. I'm not the victim of my situation that I created. I have accountability to that person and the people in that person's sphere and no one else. But I am a victim in a different circumstance that no one in this room, you, Christy, anyone that watches that, whatever housewife is gonna sit and watch it, can possibly understand. You don't know the fear that I live in constantly. And is it my own doing? Yes, and it's fine, and I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for me. But I will never be okay being called a pedophile because I'm not.
I made clear that you...
I know that, and I'm not mad. I think the fact that I'm such a people pleaser and codependent probably led to a lot of this. And maybe this is good, and this is what needs to happen. Because I feel like this is very, like, it's not raw, it's not real.
Let me tell you, I think every teacher in the world needs to hear what you're going through right now, this second, because this may seem right in the moment, but this turns into a show in a hurry. And maybe it happens right away, maybe it happens 10 years down the road, but you spend your life waiting for the hammer to drop, and then it does, and then it gets worse. Just don't do it. This is a cautionary tale. This should be part of the curriculum. This should be part of orientation every year to teachers. They need to be reminded of this every year, and you're saving people from this hell right now by being genuine about this.
Well, what comes to mind right now is and I'm gonna mess this quote up, but I hope that you'll use this, was that Maya Angelou said something to the effect of, I am human, and therefore if a human can do it, it can't be alien to me, something about that. And she went on to explain it and said, specifically, even when looking at like criminal acts, if I'm human, I am also capable of whatever that is, no matter how horrific that is. if it could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. My warning to teachers is to say, if any little voice in the back of your head tells you you're putting yourself, like that's a professional risk, because you do know things don't happen overnight. Things don't flip from white to black just like that. It's a series of very small, seemingly harmless, possibly well-intentioned moral decisions that lead to horrible places. But you have to recognize, if I'm putting myself in any kind of professional risk, would I be okay if my colleagues knew all of this?
Yeah.
Those are the things that lead to trouble, I think.
Well, that's right. And I often say behavior is on a continuum, all the way to the ugliest ugly to the sweetest and pure. It's all on a continuum, and we live on that continuum. And Maya Angelou was a friend of mine, and she said, nothing human can be alien to me.
That's what it was.
And she was exactly right. We're all capable. It's a matter of time, circumstance, situation.
And I would say guard circumstance, because you have some control over that.
Listen, you haven't blown this interview. You have spoken truth, and you've answered the question, who does that? And the answer is anybody can if they don't stay vigilant. And there are teachers out there right now that are on that slippery slope. They just haven't crossed that threshold.
And see, that just breaks my heart.
But they can hear you right now and say, don't be where I am today. Stop it. Don't spend 3 years in prison. Don't live all of these years waiting for the hammer to drop. Don't do this. Don't live with guilt. Don't live with fear. Don't live with recrimination. Don't take your career away from yourself. How has this ruined your life?
I don't want to say it's ruined my life, or maybe I just don't want to admit that it's ruined my life.
What was taken away?
My identity. Like, the way that I walk through the world is different. Very traumatized, anxiety-riddled, dark, depressed, broken existence. Sometimes I forget who I was, and sometimes I forget who I am. Everything is just sensitive and abrasive and hard for me. It's hard because of the scarlet letter that I now carry. It's hard to exist in any fashion that represents the life that I had. But the reason I won't say it ruined my life is because it distills down the very most important, like the most important things. I have to force myself to find a silver lining and, be sunny side up to a degree. The alternative is unthinkable.
You guys just heard what I've heard from every person I've talked to in that role. She said, this was special. I've heard that from crass pedophiles to one-time offenders that got caught up in the moment to serial molesters. They all think they're different, and they're not different. Everybody has a unique situation and a unique set of circumstances, but once they get in the relationship, they justify, rationalize, and believe that it's real for them and the victim. And they look at it very subjectively. They don't take into account what you're saying, what's this doing to the other person?
Yeah.
And maybe there's the exception to the rule out there, but I'll say to every teacher, there may be the exception out there. It ain't you. It ain't you. You're not the exception. When you drag a child into adult issues, when you drag a child into adult relationships, when you jump the line and take a child past all the maturational stops on the subway and put them into an adult relationship that includes betraying every adult around them, betraying their parents, and getting them in deep water before they have any of the maturational processes they need to be able to deal with those, You're cheating them, you're scarring them, and you're leaving them damaged. There's no other way to describe it. I don't care who you are or how gentle you think you may be, you're cheating them out of those years of their life, and you're crippling them for what they're going to have to deal with in the future. And you can tell yourself what you want to tell yourself, but that's the truth. That's the bottom line. Is there any other way to think about it?
No, I think anytime you engage in behavior that you later regret, when you go back and you look at those decisions, you're able to justify and rationalize what you did. And I think in the moment, she believed that it was different, and clearly it wasn't.
But I think a lot, if you listen to what she said, I wasn't grooming him. 14-year-old boy you're having over to your house, she was clearly violating the boundaries, and she is trying to distance herself and make herself, like, as you said, seem different, but she's not different. And if it would have happened where there's smoke, there's fire, all right? I don't believe for a second, and I don't know your client, but that this was somehow special. If she wouldn't have got caught, other kids could be endangered. Look at what happened here. If their teacher wouldn't have got caught, she would be still out there doing it to other kids. And so I think that she does fall into a lot of the pattern that we see where there's grooming behaviors. And once you cross those lines that are very clear, this isn't a gray area, Dr. Phil. These are very clear lines of things that teachers can and can't do. Once you cross that line, I think it's over.
We'll be right back for my final thoughts. We're talking about teachers that cross the line and repeatedly get into inappropriate relationships with students. It happens over and over and over again. And the only rationale that I can offer for it is they justify to themselves that, well, this is different. I'm the exception. I'm not like all of these others. This is not one of those situations, and I'm not going to get caught. If a man teacher did it with a female student, they would be on the steps of the schoolhouse down there ready to run him out on a rail. If it's a female teacher in our culture, we just don't think that it's quite as serious, but it is. The impact is just as bad, and it is just as disruptive on the child. The thing that you have to ask yourself is, this isn't something that sneaks up. We see example after example after example in the media, and you wonder, do these teachers not ever watch news and see these things happening again and again and again? If you don't watch anything but Dr. Phil once in a while, I've probably done 30 of these stories over the last 10 years, and I would think you would watch these things and think, you know what? I don't want to be in that situation. I spent all this time going to school. I got my teaching certificate. I'm doing something that I love to do. Why would I think I'm going to be the exception? Well, you're not going to be the exception. So let this be a wake-up call. And what I say to parents and grandparents, whoever are the adults in these children's lives, is how much do you know about who you're turning your children over to? We have biases, but we also have positive biases, where we give people the benefit of the doubt for whatever reason. We do it all the time. If somebody's a coach or a teacher or a Sunday school teacher or an airline pilot or whatever, we just, because of the position they hold, we just give them the benefit of the doubt, right? Think about it. Do y'all do that? You turn your kids over to a Little League baseball coach. You have no idea who they are or what they do when they're not there coaching your child. And here's the problem. 90+% of the people that molest children are known to the victim. They're known to the family. It's not somebody in a raincoat standing around the schoolyard. It's usually people that are known to the family and known to the child. And they hide among us. And the sad thing about it is they are helpful to the family. They're the ones that say, hey, you're working, I'll run him to practice and back. And usually those are nice people. And it's terrible that we have to be suspect of genuinely helpful people. But you gotta watch those people, because that's where these people work their way in and groom a family, not just a child. And teachers are in a position of authority. And if they're paying a particular interest to your child, you need to wonder why. Sad, it's sad that that's true. But you need to make sure that there are boundaries, there's transparency, there are other people around, and that you're monitoring the situation. Because the truth is, Most of the time, you're going to be thankful for it and it's going to turn out fine. But it doesn't have to go wrong but once for you to wish you had paid closer attention. I sound like a cynic. I'm just telling you, vigilance and diligence will pay off. I'm not asking you to be paranoid. I'm just asking you to pay attention. And to you three young men, you have a choice to make here. You didn't do anything wrong. And when these things happen and they impact what you say to yourself and how you feel about yourself, recognize that you got cheated. You got messages you weren't ready to receive. You had things happen to you that shouldn't have happened to you. And it can change the way you define yourself and value yourself, but you have a choice for that not to happen. And the best thing in the world you can do about it is give your feelings a voice. Talk to those people in your life that you trust, whether it's your pastor, your counselor, a psychologist, someone that you know that you can trust and be transparent about. And I'm so proud of you three for being here and talking about this. You're not hiding. You're here talking about it. And you've got great people representing you here and looking out for you. Look, I want to thank Christy Jack, Zach Runyon, John Marco. Thank you guys for taking the time to come down and talk about this.
Thank you, Dr.
Log on to drphil.com and you can pick up my new book, We've Got Issues, How You Can Stand Strong for America's Soul and Sanity. And in that book, you're going to find me talking about being involved in your children or grandchildren's education and holding the schools to account here. It doesn't mean going down there and running up the stairs with your hair on fire. It means going down there and getting involved in a constructive way, because eyes and ears are what make the difference. So please pay attention to what's going on. We'll see you next time.